The sky over Seoul turned black at exactly 14:47 local time. Not the black of night or storm clouds, but the black of metal and shadow. 3,000 alien warships had arrived, blocking out the sun across the entire northern hemisphere. Each ship was the size of a small city, hanging in the sky like impossible monuments to a power humanity had never imagined. Commander Park Hyun-woo stood in the Seoul Defense Command Center, watching the screens fill with red markers. Each marker was an enemy vessel. He had fought in the Lunar Rebellion 5 years ago. He had seen soldiers die in the vacuum of space. He had watched colonies burn. But this was different. This was extinction staring humanity in the face. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Lieutenant Baek, his voice shaking. "It's broadcasting on all frequencies." "Every language," Park nodded. "Put it through." The voice that filled the command center was not human. It spoke with strange harmonics, layered sounds that hurt to hear. But the words were clear enough. "Humans of Earth, you are now subjects of the Vrithian Dominion. You have conquered nothing. You have achieved nothing. You are the 18th species to stand before our might. 17 have surrendered. You will be the same. You have 72 hours to submit your governments, your weapons, and your will. Failure to comply will result in cleansing protocols. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. Silence filled the command center. Park could hear someone crying in the back of the room. He understood. The message was clear. Surrender or die. "Get me the coalition command," Park said quietly. "And someone find Dr. Kang. Tell her we need Project Hellstrike ready in 48 hours. Lieutenant Baek stared at him. "Sir, that project isn't finished. It's not even tested." "Then we test it on them," Park said. His voice was ice. "And get Captain Lee's squadron ready for deployment. I want every orbital fighter we have in launch position." Across the city, people were flooding the streets. Some ran toward shelters. Others simply stood and stared at the sky, at the massive alien ships that had stolen the sun. News broadcasts showed the same scenes from every major city: London, Tokyo, New York, Mumbai. Everywhere the Armada had positioned itself, humanity looked up in terror. Dr. Kang Minji was not terrified. She was angry. She stood in her laboratory at the Global Weapons Research Institute, surrounded by holographic displays showing the alien fleet's positions. She had spent 10 years developing weapons that were supposed to protect Earth from exactly this scenario. Now she would find out if her work had been worth it. "How many platforms do we have operational?" she asked her assistant. 16, Doctor. The others are still under construction. 16 will have to do." She pulled up the firing solutions. Project Hellstrike was elegant in its simplicity. Humanity had built a network of orbital weapons platforms, disguised as defunct satellites and space debris. Each platform contained a mass driver, capable of accelerating tungsten rods to 3% of light speed. At that velocity, the rods would punch through any known shield technology. The aliens didn't know the weapons existed. That was the only advantage Earth had. "Start the activation sequence," Kang said. "I want every platform online and ready. And get me a direct line to Commander Park." In orbit above Earth, Captain Lee Dae-hyun sat in the cockpit of his fighter, the Talon 7. He had been in space when the aliens arrived. He had watched them appear from nowhere, their faster-than-light drives creating ripples in space that made his instruments scream. Now he was part of a defensive perimeter that seemed utterly pointless. His fighter was 30 meters long. The alien dreadnoughts were kilometers across. It was like bringing a knife to a nuclear war. "Captain, we have movement," his co-pilot said. "One of the big ones is changing position." Lee checked his displays. A Vrithian command ship was moving toward Earth's atmosphere. Scanning beams swept across the planet's surface. They were choosing their targets. "All squadrons maintain position," came Commander Park's voice over the comm. "Do not engage unless fired upon." "We need them to think we're helpless," Lee gritted his teeth. Every instinct told him to attack, to do something. But Park was right. If they showed their hand too early, the aliens would adapt. Humanity needed one perfect strike. The 72 hours began to count down. In the Seoul Defense Command Center, Park watched as world leaders appeared on secure channels. The president of the United Earth Coalition spoke first. "Commander Park, what are our options?" "Two options, Madam President," Park said. "We surrender and hope they treat us well. Or we fight. The president looked exhausted. "With what?" "They have 3,000 warships. We have orbital fighters and ground defenses. It's not a fight. It's suicide. Maybe, Park admitted. But Dr. Kang's team has something that might give us a chance. Project Hellstrike was designed for exactly this scenario. If we can take out enough of their ships in the first strike, we might force them to negotiate. And if we fail, then we die fighting instead of living as slaves. The president was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. Prepare your weapons, Commander. But we wait until the last possible moment. Maybe they'll give us better terms if we make them believe we're considering surrender. Yes, ma'am. The hours passed slowly. Across Earth, people prepared in different ways. Some prayed, some gathered with their families. Some loaded weapons and prepared to fight invaders that could glass continents. In Seoul, a young engineer named Yoon Ji-won worked frantically in the orbital weapons control room, running diagnostics on the Hellstrike platforms. She was 26 years old and had never imagined her weapons would actually be used. Now she was responsible for systems that might save or doom humanity. Platform 7 is showing power fluctuations, she reported to Dr. Kang. Bypass the secondary couplings, Kang replied. We don't need it at 100%. We just need it to fire once, that was all they would get. The Hellstrike platforms could fire one devastating volley. After that, the aliens would know where they were and destroy them. Everything depended on that first shot. The deadline approached. 60 hours, 48, 24. The world held its breath. With 12 hours remaining, the Vrithian fleet broadcast another message. This time there were no words, just images. Burning cities on alien worlds, species driven to extinction, populations enslaved. The message was clear. This is what happens to those who resist. In the command center, Park watched the images without expression. Then he opened a secure channel to all defense forces worldwide. This is Commander Park Hyunwoo of the Seoul Defense Command. In 12 hours, the aliens expect our surrender. I say we give them something else. Dr. Kang, are we ready? Hellstrike platforms are active and locked on target, Kang replied. Captain Lee, status? All squadrons ready for deployment, sir. Colonel Choi? Defense forces worldwide are in position, Commander. Park nodded. Then he opened a channel to the Vrithian fleet. His message was simple. One word, no. In the alien command ship, Vrex the Unyielding received the message. He had conquered 17 species. All had surrendered. This was the first time in his military career that prey had refused. For a moment, he felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, but surprise. Then he gave his orders. Prepare a demonstration strike. Target a minor population center. Show them what defiance costs. The war was about to begin, and humanity had just chosen to fight. The Vrithian command bridge erupted in harsh alien voices. Officers shouted in their own language, confusion mixing with anger. Vrex the Unyielding stood before the main display, his 4 eyes fixed on the single word humanity had sent back. No. Such a small word. Such foolishness. They refuse? His second officer hissed. Impossible. They have no weapons that can harm us. Then we teach them the price of pride, Vrex said. He touched the tactical display, choosing his target carefully. Not one of the major cities. That would come later if needed. Something smaller. Something that would demonstrate power without wasting too much ammunition. His claw pointed to a coastal city. There are 20 million humans. Send the plasma bombardment beam. Turn the city to glass, the weapon charged. On Earth, alarms screamed across every defense network. Dr. Kang watched her screens and saw the energy signature building on the alien ship. She knew what it meant. They were about to kill millions. Commander Park, she shouted into her comm. They're firing on Mumbai. Plasma weapon charging now. Park's voice came back instantly. Captain Lee, intercept course now. All available squadrons protect that city. In orbit, Lee was already moving. He had seen the energy build up 3 seconds before the order came. His fighter screamed through space, engines burning at maximum. Behind him, 20 other fighters followed. Sir, our shields can't stop that weapon, his co-pilot said. Not asking them to stop it, Lee replied. Just asking them to mess it up enough. The Vrithian plasma beam fired. It was a column of superheated energy, capable of burning through a planet's crust. It lanced down through the atmosphere, a spear of death aimed at Mumbai's heart. Lee's squadron hit it from the side. The fighters positioned themselves in the beam's path and activated every defensive system they had. Shields flared, metal boiled. The beam's cohesion wavered, disrupted by the electromagnetic fields and ablative armor of 20 dying spacecraft. The beam split, scattered, its power dispersed across a wider area. Instead of hitting Mumbai directly, the weakened beam struck the Arabian Sea 50 kilometers from the coast. The water exploded. Steam rose in a column visible from space. A massive tsunami formed, racing toward the shore. Terrible, destructive, but not the instant death of 20 million people. Lee's fighter tumbled through space, shields gone, hull breached in a dozen places. But he was alive. Most of his squadron was not. Mumbai evacuation is underway, came the report. Coastal areas will be hit by the wave, but the city core will survive. Estimated casualties under 50,000. 50,000 dead. Lee closed his eyes. 50,000 people who had been eating lunch, working, playing with their children, gone because aliens decided to make a point. His hands tightened on the controls. All remaining fighters reform on me, he said quietly. We're not done yet. On the Vrethian command ship, Vrex stared at his display. The demonstration had failed. Somehow these primitive humans had disrupted his weapon. Unacceptable. Ready another strike, he commanded. Target a major population center this time. But before he could choose, space lit up with fire. Dr. Kang had activated Phase 1 of Project Hellstrike. Around Earth's orbit, 16 platforms that had looked like dead satellites and debris suddenly came to life. Power cores that had been dormant for years ignited. Magnetic accelerators that stretched hundreds of meters long began to charge. Firing solution locked, Kang said. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. All platforms synchronized. Targeting the Vrethian Vanguard fleet. Commander Park's voice filled her earpiece. You are authorized to fire. Give them hell, Doctor. Kang pressed the activation sequence. The tungsten rods were simple things. Just cylinders of dense metal, 2 meters long and 30 centimeters wide. No explosives, no complex systems. They didn't need them. The mass drivers accelerated them to 3% of light speed in less than 2 seconds. At that velocity, the kinetic energy was beyond calculation. 16 platforms fired. 128 tungsten rods streaked toward the Vrethian fleet. The aliens' shields were designed to stop energy weapons and explosive warheads. They were not designed to stop solid metal moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The rods punched through shields like they weren't there. They struck hulls and kept going, passing completely through some ships, their kinetic energy so massive that the impact point simply vaporized. Rex watched in horror as his tactical display lit up with damage reports. Ship after ship showed critical failures. Some broke apart immediately. Others tumbled through space, their power cores breached, secondary explosions tearing them to pieces. Report, he roared. 47 ships destroyed or disabled, his tactical officer said, voice shaking. Unknown weapon system. Kinetic strikes at relativistic velocity. Shields ineffective. 47 ships. Vrex had lost more vessels in 30 seconds than he had lost in his entire military career. These humans, these supposed primitives, had hidden weapons that could kill his dreadnoughts. Full defensive formation, he ordered. Locate the weapon platforms. Destroy them. But the platforms were already going dark, their power signatures vanishing. They had fired their volley and now hid again among the orbital debris. The aliens would find them eventually, but it would take time. On Earth, people watched the sky and saw alien ships burning. They saw debris falling, creating meteor showers of destroyed vessels. They saw humanity fighting back. In Seoul, crowds gathered in the streets, cheering. In London, people wept with relief. In Mumbai, evacuation teams worked frantically to save coastal residents from the tsunami. But they worked with hope now. Commander Park stood in his command center, watching the tactical display. 47 ships destroyed. 3,000 remained. It wasn't enough. Not nearly enough, but it was a start. Commander, we're receiving communications from the Vrethian fleet, Lieutenant Bayek said. What do they say? They're demanding to know our weapons capabilities. They want to negotiate, Park smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Tell them we'll negotiate after they leave our solar system. Until then, we keep shooting. Dr. Kang appeared on his screen. Commander, we can't fire another coordinated volley like that. The platforms need 12 hours to recharge, and the aliens will be hunting for them now. I know, Doctor. But they don't know that. Let them worry about when we'll fire again. Fear is a weapon, too. Across the planet, military forces mobilized. Humanity had drawn blood. Now they had to survive the response. Because Vrex was done with demonstrations. He was done with warnings. Now he would show these humans what real war looked like. Deploy the shock troopers, Vrex commanded. 10,000 dropships. Target their major population centers. We take their cities, we break their will. The dropships launched from the Vrethian fleet, metal eggs filled with alien soldiers. They entered Earth's atmosphere like meteors, their heat shields glowing red. They were headed for Seoul, London, São Paulo, Lagos, and Jakarta. They would land in the heart of humanity's greatest cities and tear them apart. In Seoul, Lieutenant Kim Sora watched the dropships fall from the sky. She commanded a special operations unit, 300 soldiers trained for urban warfare. They had prepared for this. Every building was a fortress. Every street was a kill zone. The aliens thought they would face terrified civilians. They were wrong. All units, weapons ready, Kim said into her comm. Let them land. Let them think we're easy targets. Then we show them what happens when you invade Earth. The first dropship crashed into the center of Seoul, its impact shaking buildings. The doors opened. Vrethian shock troopers emerged, each one 3 meters tall, armored in biomechanical suits, carrying weapons that could melt concrete. They stepped into a city that was ready for them, and the real war began. The Vrethian shock troopers stepped from the dropship into Seoul's central district. It was 3 meters of muscle and armor, bred for war across 1,000 worlds. Its weapons swept across the street, targeting systems searching for fleeing civilians. It found empty buildings instead, abandoned vehicles. Silence. Then the street exploded. Lieutenant Kim Sora had positioned charges in every building along the landing zone. She waited until 30 shock troopers were visible, then triggered them all. The buildings collapsed inward, bringing thousands of tons of concrete and steel down on the aliens. Most of the troopers survived. Their armor was too strong, but they were buried, disoriented, their sensors filled with dust and debris. Fire, Kim shouted. Her soldiers opened up from concealed positions. They didn't use conventional bullets. Dr. Kang's team had developed directed energy weapons specifically for this scenario. The weapons overloaded shields with electromagnetic pulses, then cooked whatever was inside. The buried shock troopers died before they could dig themselves out, but there were more. So many more. Dropships were landing across the city, across every targeted city on Earth. The Vrethian strategy was simple. Deploy overwhelming force directly into population centers. Capture key infrastructure. Force surrender through terror. They had done this to 17 species. It had always worked. In London, shock troopers marched through the streets, their weapons destroying anything that moved. They expected panic. They got explosives. Resistance fighters had turned the underground into a death trap. Every tunnel was mined. Every station was an ambush point. The aliens pursued humans into the subway and found themselves trapped in a maze designed by people who knew every centimeter of it. In São Paulo, the aliens landed in the favelas and discovered that urban warfare in the developing world was different. The people here had fought gangs, corrupt police, and poverty. They weren't afraid of monsters from space. They fought with homemade weapons, with traps, with fury. The shock troopers were stronger, but strength meant nothing in narrow alleys where someone could drop a bomb from a third-story window and disappear before you could return fire. Across Earth, humanity fought. Not with military precision, though that existed. Not with advanced technology, though that helped. They fought with home ground advantage. They fought with rage. They fought because surrender meant extinction, and if they were going to die, they would make it cost everything. In Seoul, Kim's unit fell back through planned retreat routes. The aliens followed, pushing deeper into the city. They didn't realize they were being herded. Every street they took, every building they entered had been prepared. Automated defense turrets activated behind them, cutting off retreat. EMP mines destroyed their shields. Swarm drones, thousands of them, attacked like mechanical insects, targeting sensors and joints in their armor. The shock troopers were individually superior to any human soldier, but Kim's forces didn't fight them individually. They fought like a swarm. 10 soldiers would attack, damage one trooper, then retreat. Another group would attack from a different angle. The aliens couldn't adapt fast enough. They were trained for direct combat, for overwhelming firepower. They weren't trained for an enemy that refused to stand and fight. Lieutenant, they're bringing in air support, one of Kim's soldiers reported. She looked up and saw Vrethian gunships moving through the sky, their weapons targeting her positions. She smiled. Now, she said into her comm, from hidden positions across Seoul, surface-to-air missiles launched. Hundreds of them. Not military grade, but civilian rockets repurposed. Drones modified to carry explosives, anything that could fly and blow up. The gunship's countermeasures handled the first wave. And the second. But there were too many. Quantity became its own quality. Gunships fell from the sky, crashing into buildings and streets. On the moon, engineer Yoon Ji-won watched her screens. The Luna base mass driver was the largest weapon humanity had ever built. A railgun kilometers long carved into the lunar surface, powered by fusion reactors that could accelerate projectiles to velocities that made the orbital platforms look slow. Dr. Kang. "The moon gun is ready," Yoon reported. "Target lock," Kang asked from Earth. Locked on the Vrethian carrier group, Northern Formation. They're clustered together, probably coordinating the ground assault. "Fire when ready." Yoon's hands moved across the controls. The mass driver charged, power building until the entire facility hummed with contained energy. Then she released it. The projectile was larger than the orbital tungsten rods. It was a solid block of titanium steel alloy, 10 meters long and 2 meters wide, accelerated to 5% of light speed. It crossed the distance between Moon and Earth orbit in seconds. The Vrethian carrier had shields designed to stop anything conventional weapons could throw at it. The projectile hit those shields and treated them like mist. The carrier simply came apart. The kinetic impact was so massive that nearby ships were damaged by debris and the shockwave. 15 vessels were destroyed instantly. 20 more were crippled. Rex watched his fleet die and felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. "They have weapons on their moon," his tactical officer reported. "Power signatures indicate it can fire again." "How long until reinforcements arrive?" Rex demanded. 36 hours, Supreme Commander, 36 hours. Rex had to hold for 36 hours, keep his fleet intact, break Earth's resistance. Then the reinforcement fleet would arrive and this pest species would be crushed. But first he had to survive the next 36 hours. On Earth, the fighting continued. The shock troopers were learning. They stopped pursuing into obvious traps. They began using their own drones, their own tactics. The Vrethians had fought 1,000 wars. They adapted, but so did humans. In Jakarta, resistance fighters discovered that the shock troopers' armor was vulnerable to extreme heat. They started using modified industrial equipment. Furnaces and welding tools turned into weapons. In Lagos, they found that the aliens' communications could be jammed with the right frequency of electromagnetic noise. Every city shared information, traded tactics, adapted faster than the aliens could counter. Commander Park watched the battle reports flow into his command center. Millions were dead. Entire neighborhoods were destroyed. But the cities still held. The aliens had expected to take them in hours. It had been a full day and humanity was still fighting. "Commander, we're detecting communications from the Vrethian fleet," Lieutenant Bayek said. "They're calling for reinforcements." Park felt ice in his stomach. "How long?" "We estimate 36 hours until arrival. 36 hours. That was all the time they had. If reinforcements arrived, Earth was finished. They couldn't fight both fleets at once. "Get me Dr. Kang and Colonel Choi," Park said. "We need to end this before those reinforcements arrive." Across the city, a civilian named Han Junho listened to the military communications on a hacked frequency. He ran an underground network of resistance fighters, ordinary people who had taken up weapons when the aliens landed. He heard Park's words and understood. 36 hours to win or die. He activated his network. Thousands of civilians across Earth received his message. It was simple, one more push. "Give everything. We hold for 36 hours or we die forever." The response was immediate. People who had been hiding came out with weapons. Factories that had shut down started producing ammunition. Scientists worked on new weapons. Children carried supplies to soldiers. The entire planet mobilized for one final effort. In the Seoul Defense Command Center, Park assembled his officers on secure channels. Dr. Kang, Colonel Choi, Captain Lee, Lieutenant Kim, Engineer Yoon, and dozens of others. "Here's the situation," Park said. "We have 36 hours before 10,000 more alien ships arrive. We can't win that fight, so we have to end this war now. Dr. Kang has a plan. It's insane. It will probably kill most of us. But it might work." Kang appeared on the screen. "We take the fight to their command ship. We board it, take control, and force them to surrender or destroy them from within. At the same time, we use every remaining weapon platform in one coordinated strike. Everything we have all at once." "That's suicide," someone said. "Yes," Park agreed. But it's suicide with a purpose. Who's with me? Every officer agreed. They were already dead. They just hadn't stopped fighting yet. Now they would make their deaths count. The United Earth Coalition Council met in emergency session. The president looked exhausted. Half the council members were calling from bunkers. Some cities were burning. Millions were dead. And now Commander Park was proposing something that sounded like madness. You want to board their command ship, the president said slowly. The same ship that has thousands of alien soldiers on it. Yes, ma'am, Park replied from his command center in Seoul. Half the building was damaged from a nearby strike, but he stood straight, uniform, perfect. It's the only way to end this before reinforcements arrive. Commander, even if you somehow reach that ship, even if you get inside, you'll be outnumbered 1,000 to 1. That's why it will work, Park said. They won't expect it. They think we're defending. They think we're desperate. They're right about desperate, but we're not just defending anymore. We're attacking. Dr. Kang appeared on another screen. The plan has 3 parts. First, Captain Lee leads a fighter escort to get boarding shuttles through the defensive perimeter. Second, Lieutenant Kim and 500 Special Forces soldiers board the command ship and fight their way to the bridge. Third, while the aliens are focused on the boarding action, I activate every remaining weapon platform for one simultaneous strike at their fleet center. You're using the boarding team as a distraction, the president said quietly. Yes, Park admitted, and I'll be with them. The council erupted in protest, but Park spoke over them. This is my plan. I won't order others to die while I sit in safety. Besides, someone needs to coordinate the ground assault and the orbital strike. I can do that from a boarding shuttle as well as I can from here. The president studied Park's face for a long moment. Then she nodded. Do it. And Commander, don't die. That's an order, Park smiled. I'll do my best, ma'am. The preparations began immediately. Across Earth, every remaining military asset moved into position. Captain Lee's squadron, down to 30 fighters from the original 200, prepared to escort 5 shuttles toward the Vrithian command ship. Each shuttle carried 100 soldiers, the best humanity had. Lieutenant Kim briefed her team in the Seoul staging area. They were special forces from every nation. Korean, American, Brazilian, Nigerian, Indonesian, Russian, Chinese, Indian. The best warriors Earth could produce. Our job is simple, Kim said. Get to their bridge. Kill anyone in the way. Take control of the ship. Hold it long enough for the orbital strike to work. And if we can't take the bridge, someone asked. Then we make sure they can't use the ship either, Kim replied. We have demolition charges. If we're going down, we take them with us. The soldiers checked their weapons. Plasma rifles, EMP grenades, breaching charges, and simple combat knives because sometimes you had to kill quietly. They wore powered armor. Exoskeletons that multiplied their strength and speed. It still wouldn't make them equal to shock troopers in direct combat, but it would help. On the moon, Engineer Yoon prepared the Luna base mass driver for its final shot. The weapon had fired twice already. The third shot would destroy it. The power requirements were too high, the stress on the barrel too great. But that didn't matter. One more shot was all they needed. Dr. Kang, I'm linking the Luna gun to the orbital platform network, Yoon reported. When you fire the platforms, I'll fire simultaneously. The combined strike should overwhelm their defenses. Yoon, you know what that will do to the base, Kang said gently. I know. Yoon's voice was calm. I've evacuated everyone else. It's just me here now. Someone has to manually calibrate the final shot. Make it count, Doctor. Kang's voice cracked slightly. We will, thank you. In orbit, Captain Lee ran final checks on his fighter. It was barely holding together. Patched with spare parts and salvaged equipment. Most of his squadron was the same. They were flying in craft that should have been scrapped, against an enemy with overwhelming firepower, but they were still flying. All squadrons, this is Talon 7, Lee transmitted. We've lost a lot of friends, a lot of good pilots. Now we make sure they didn't die for nothing. We get those shuttles through no matter what. If we have to ram those alien ships, we ram them. Understood? 30 voices acknowledged. They understood. This was the last mission. Win or lose, none of them expected to survive. The operation began at exactly 03 Gaur UTC. That was when the Earth was positioned for the best firing solutions. When the Vrithian fleet was clustered to coordinate ground operations. It was when Commander Park had calculated they would be most vulnerable. The shuttles launched from hidden bases, using Earth's bulk to shield them from detection. Lee's fighters formed a protective screen. They accelerated toward the Vrethian fleet at maximum speed, trying to get through before the aliens could react. They made it halfway before the aliens noticed. Rex was in his command center, studying reports from the ground assault when alarms shrieked. "Human vessels approaching." Small craft heading directly for the command ship. "Destroy them," Rex ordered. But even as he spoke, he felt uncertainty. Why were they attacking? They had been defending successfully, bleeding his forces in urban combat. Why change tactics now? Vrethian interceptors launched. Energy weapons fired. The space between Earth and the alien fleet became a storm of death. Lee's fighters weaved through the fire, using every trick they knew. Spinning, dodging, using debris as cover. But there were too many enemies. "Talon 9 is hit," someone shouted. "Talon 15 is down." Lee watched his squadron die. One by one, fighters exploded or tumbled away, damaged beyond recovery. But they were buying time. Every second they survived, the shuttles got closer. "All remaining fighters, maximum burn," Lee commanded. "Ram anything in the shuttle's path." The last fighters became missiles. They aimed themselves at Vrethian interceptors and hit with suicidal precision. Metal and fire bloomed in the vacuum. The shuttles broke through the defensive perimeter. Lee's fighter, somehow still intact, followed them in. "Shuttles are through. Godspeed." Lieutenant Kim felt her shuttle shudder as it approached the massive command ship. It was the size of a city, bristling with weapons, and they were about to break inside it. The shuttle's pilot found a docking bay, one of hundreds that dotted the ship's hull, and headed straight for it. "Breaching charges ready?" Kim asked her team. "Ready, Lieutenant." The shuttle hit the docking bay door at full speed. The breaching charges detonated. The door exploded inward. The shuttle crashed into the bay and its doors flew open. 500 human soldiers poured out into an alien warship. The Vrethian crew in the docking bay died in seconds. They weren't expecting boarders. They had weapons, but they were engineers and dock workers, not warriors. Kim's team cut through them and pushed deeper into the ship. "Command, we're inside," Kim reported. "Copy that," Park's voice came back. He was in another shuttle, landing at a different docking bay. "All teams, move fast. We need to take that bridge before they organize a defense." The human teams moved through the Vrethian ship like a disease. They were outnumbered. The aliens were physically stronger, but the humans had surprise, desperation, and nothing to lose. They fought through corridors that were too large, past technology they didn't understand, killing anything that moved. The Vrethians fought back. Shock troopers deployed inside their own ship. The corridors became a meat grinder. Humans died. Aliens died. The boarding teams pushed forward, leaving bodies behind them. In space, Dr. Kang watched her screens. The boarding teams were buying time. Now she had to use it. "All platforms activate firing sequence," she commanded. "Yoon, are you ready?" On the moon, Yoon sat alone in the Luna base control room. The mass driver was charging, power building to levels that made the walls shake. Warning lights flashed everywhere. The weapon was tearing itself apart. "I'm ready," Yoon said. She looked at a picture on her console. Her family. Her parents. Her little brother. She smiled at them. "I'm ready." "Firing in 3, Kang said. 2, 1. Every remaining weapon platform around Earth fired. The Luna base mass driver fired. Tungsten rods and titanium projectiles streaked toward the Vrethian fleet at impossible velocities. At the same time, the aliens were focused on the boarding actions, their defensive systems tracking shuttles and fighters. They saw the attack too late. The kinetic strikes hit like the fist of an angry god. Ships exploded. The Vrethian formation shattered. 800 vessels died in the first 10 seconds. On the moon, the mass driver fired and then tore itself apart. The magnetic accelerators exploded. The fusion reactors went critical. Luna base died in a flash of nuclear fire. Engineer Yoon had 1 second to smile. Then she was gone. Lieutenant Kim fought through the Vrethian command ship with 200 soldiers left from her original 500. Every corridor was a battle. Every door might hide death. But they kept moving, pushing toward the bridge. Commander Park was 3 decks below her, leading another team through engineering sections. His voice crackled over the comm. "Kim, can you hear me?" "Barely, sir." "Heavy interference. The orbital strike hit. 800 confirmed kills. The alien fleet is broken. But reinforcements are still coming. We need that bridge. We're almost there. Almost was still 3 more decks. 3 more sections filled with Vrethian soldiers who now understood that these humans were going to reach the bridge or die trying. The aliens formed a defensive line. Shock troopers in full combat armor, weapons charged. Kim's team hit them head-on. Plasma fire filled the corridor. Human soldiers fell. Alien soldiers fell. It was close combat, brutal and merciless. Kim threw an EMP grenade that knocked out the aliens' shields. Then her soldiers rushed in with knives and close-range weapons. The Vrethians were stronger, but humans had rage. The defensive line broke. Kim's team pushed through. Ahead was the final door. The bridge. Inside the bridge, Rex the Unyielding watched his fleet die. 800 ships gone. The humans had weapons he hadn't imagined. They had will he hadn't anticipated. And now they were at his door. Seal the bridge, he commanded. Kill anyone who enters. But his officers were already fleeing. They had seen enough. This species was different. This species didn't surrender. His remaining guards formed a final line, weapons ready. Kim placed breaching charges on the door. Everyone back, the door exploded. Her team rushed through into a storm of weapons fire. Half her soldiers died in the first seconds. The rest pushed forward, firing, moving, refusing to stop. The alien guards fell one by one. Then it was just Kim and 5 soldiers, standing in the command bridge of the Vrethian flagship. And Vrex alone, his guards dead around him. Vrex looked at the humans. They were small, bleeding, exhausted, but still standing. He had conquered 17 species. None had ever reached his bridge. None had ever made him feel what he felt now. Not fear, respect. You fought well, Vrex said in his harsh voice. For primitives. Kim raised her weapon, pointing it at his head. We're not primitive. We're human, and Earth is not yours. Kill me then, Vrex said. But my reinforcements will arrive. They will burn your world. You have won nothing. We've won this, Kim said. We've proven that you can bleed, that you can die, that you're not unstoppable. She lowered her weapon slightly. You have a choice. Order your fleet to leave. Tell your reinforcements to turn back, or I put a bullet in your head and take control of this ship myself. Vrex laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. You cannot control this ship. You do not know our systems. Then I blow it up, Kim said simply. My team placed charges throughout the ship while we fought our way here. If you don't surrender, I detonate them and we all die together. Your fleet loses its command ship. Your reinforcements arrive to find chaos. Maybe Earth still dies, but you won't see it. Vrex studied her face. He saw truth there. She would do it. These humans would rather die than surrender. He had never encountered a species like this, not in 5,000 years of conquest. Why do you fight so hard? He asked. We would have let you live. As subjects, yes, but alive. Because we're not subjects, Kim said. We're not slaves. We're human. We choose our own path even if it leads to death. For a long moment, Vrex was silent. Then he touched a control on his command console. All Vrethian forces, this is Supreme Commander Vrex. Cease all attacks. Begin withdrawal from Earth orbit. His officers' voices filled the comm, confused, demanding confirmation. Vrex repeated the order. The fleet began to move, ships pulling back from Earth, rising toward higher orbits. The reinforcement fleet? Kim asked. Vrex touched another control. Reinforcement fleet, this is Vrex. Do not proceed to Earth. The campaign is concluded. Kim nodded. Then she shot him, not to kill. The shot hit his command console, destroying it. Vrex staggered back, shocked. That's for Mumbai, Kim said. For everyone you killed trying to prove your strength. Now get your fleet out of our solar system. And when you go back to your empire, tell them what you learned here. Tell them Earth doesn't kneel. Vrex looked at the human soldier. She could have killed him. Should have killed him. But she let him live to carry the message. It was a greater wound than death. He would return home in defeat. The first Supreme Commander to ever lose to a primitive species. We will remember, Vrex said quietly. The galaxy will remember. Good, Kim replied. That's the point. On Earth, people watched the alien ships rise from their cities. The shock troopers retreated to their dropships. The dropships launched. The fleet gathered in high orbit, then began moving away from Earth, accelerating toward the outer solar system. Captain Lee, somehow still alive in his battered fighter, followed them at a distance. Making sure they left, making sure it was real. Command, this is Talon 7. The alien fleet is leaving Earth space. It's over. In the Seoul Defense Command Center, Commander Park heard those words and felt his legs give out. He sat down heavily, only then realizing he was bleeding from a dozen wounds sustained during the boarding action. He had made it back to his shuttle somehow, gotten back to Earth somehow. Now he could finally stop. "It's over," he repeated. "We won." Dr. Kang sat in her laboratory, staring at screens showing the orbital platforms burning up in Earth's atmosphere, all destroyed in the final strike. The weapon network she had spent 10 years building gone in one moment. But it had been enough. She thought of Engineer Yoon alone on the moon, smiling as she fired the last shot. She thought of all the pilots, soldiers, civilians who had died fighting, millions dead, but billions alive. On screens worldwide, the alien fleet vanished into the darkness beyond Neptune. Captain Lee confirmed their departure, then turned his fighter toward home. He was the last pilot of his original squadron. He would carry their names with him forever. Cities that had been battlefields began to quiet. In Seoul, Lieutenant Kim emerged from a shuttle exhausted, covered in alien blood and her own. Civilians cheered. She didn't feel like celebrating. She had killed today. Killed aliens, yes, but killed. She would carry that weight, but she had saved Earth. That had to count for something. 6 months later, humanity gathered at a memorial on the moon, built where Luna Base had once stood. The base was gone, vaporized in the final shot, but the crater remained. They built the memorial there, a simple stone monument with names carved into it. Thousands of names, millions of names. Commander Park stood before it, recovered from his wounds. Dr. Kang read the names aloud, or as many as she could, before her voice broke. Captain Lee saluted, tears on his face. Lieutenant Kim placed flowers at the base, one for every soldier in her unit who hadn't come home. The inscription on the monument was simple. When they came to conquer, we showed them humanity. When they demanded surrender, we showed them defiance. When they blocked our sky, we didn't look up in fear. We aimed with fury. We are Earth, we are humanity. We do not kneel. Park looked up at the stars. They seemed different now. No longer distant and peaceful. Now they held other species. Other civilizations. Some would be friendly. Some would be hostile. But all of them would know about Earth. All of them would know what happened when the Vrethian Dominion tried to conquer humanity. A young officer approached Park. "Sir, we're receiving first contact signals from multiple alien species. They want to open diplomatic relations." "What kind of signals?" "Respectful, sir." "Very respectful." Park smiled. Earth had paid a terrible price for that respect. But perhaps it had been worth it. Humanity had taken its place among the stars not as victims or conquerors, but as a species that earned its place through strength and will. "Open channels," Park said. "Let's talk to our new neighbors, as equals." Around Earth, the defense networks were being rebuilt, stronger, better. Humanity would never be caught unprepared again. The orbital platforms were being replaced. The moon would have new weapons. Mars and the outer colonies would be fortified, because now humanity knew they were not alone in the universe. And the universe was not safe, but neither was humanity. The species that had stared at extinction and chosen to fight. The species that had looked at an impossible enemy and aimed their weapons anyway. Dr. Kang stood on the observation deck of a new orbital station, watching Earth turn below. The planet was scarred, cities were being rebuilt, millions had died, but humanity had survived, had won. Captain Lee flew patrol routes in a new fighter, watching for threats that might come. He would fly these routes until he was too old to fly. Someone had to keep watch, someone had to remember. Lieutenant Kim trained new soldiers, teaching them the tactics that had won the war. Urban combat, guerrilla warfare, adaptation, refusal to surrender. She was hard on them. She had to be. Next time, if there was a next time, humanity had to be ready. Commander Park retired to an advisory position but never really stopped working. He planned defenses. He coordinated with other nations. He prepared humanity for a galaxy that was no longer theoretical. And on the moon at the memorial, people came to remember. They read the names. They told stories of the war. They made sure that humanity never forgot what they had learned. When the galaxy tried to make them kneel, they chose to stand. When an alien armada blocked their sky, they didn't look up in fear. They aimed, and they fired, and they won. Earth would remember. The galaxy would remember. And when other species looked at humanity now, they saw not primitives or prey. They saw equals, dangerous equals who had proven their strength the hard way. The war was over. Humanity had survived, and the stars waited, full of both danger and promise for a species that had proven it could face both and still stand tall.